Hello there, Drew Hanish of Whiskey Lore, and time for another whiskey tasting. And today we're headed to Tennessee and Chattanooga Whiskey Company. I have been to this distillery before, actually had to make 2 attempts at it, and this is a good reminder for those of you with summer plans and maybe you're heading to Tennessee. Might be good to get reservations, because the first time I went, I wasn't able to actually get in because they were booked up. Oddly enough, the second time I went, I got reservations. I was the only one on the tour, but it was great because I got a chance to really ask a lot of questions and got a lot of information. So I'm going to share some of that with you, as well as doing a tasting of these 2 whiskeys. I have the Chattanooga 91 and the 111, and both of these have the same mash bill. They are just different proofs and slightly different processes. One of the things I really love about Chattanooga whiskey is their transparency. And this is something that I think a lot of distilleries could learn from. A lot of Kentucky distilleries that make bourbon like these guys, well, I don't know that I've seen a distillery do a better job of telling you what it is that they are making. So you got your proof up top. We see who your master distiller is, and then we get a full rundown. You can be shocked by all the stuff in here. All right, you're going to have your mash bill. So mash bill on both of these: yellow corn, malted rye, caramel malted barley, and honey malted barley. It tells you how long the fermentation process is, something you usually only hear when you go on a tour, and sometimes I have to ask. 7 days. They have cooperage use for this one is a 53-gallon toasted and charred oak barrel. It tells you the finish on this, so this is a finished whiskey. It is finished in a 4,000-gallon oak Solera barrel, charred. 4,000 gallon. I don't know how much wood interaction that's going to do, but that is what they're doing. Filtration, non-chill filtered, good stuff. Age, greater than 2 years, and the batch size is 8 to 12 barrels. They also mention, so you see these things say small batch and you have no idea. I mean, a Jim Beam small batch is going to be a lot different than a say a Neely family distilleries. All right, so the batch size there. The other thing it says here is distilled, aged, and bottled by Chattanooga Whiskey, Chattanooga, Tennessee. There's an interesting story behind why that's probably very important for them to have there, because when Chattanooga Whiskey Company first came about, the first whiskey that they did was called Chattanooga 1816. And in big letters, it said distilled in Indiana. And it created quite the firestorm in the Chattanooga area. Why would you put Chattanooga on something that's coming from Indiana? And that was an opportunity for these guys to reach out to the community and say, we can't make it here. Help us. We need help. So they actually had a whole big Vote Whiskey campaign. And now that they have the ability to make whiskey in their own community, they are selling off their supply of the Chattanooga 1816. So if you find it, it is disappearing. And they now produce everything between 2 distilleries in Chattanooga. One distillery has a 2.5-story column still. Apparently it's in a car dealership. I have not visited that particular distillery, and it doesn't do tours. The other one is the Experimental Distillery, which is downtown in Chattanooga. So you can walk over, see the Chattanooga Choo Choo across the street. And then for all you Glenn Miller fans, and I know you're out there, there's actually another distillery across the street called Gate 11 as well. And they do tours over there, I believe. They weren't doing them when I went through because they are it's got a large area in there for sipping your whiskeys, and you can do all the samples and all of that. They actually even have a window where you can come up to and do samples. and then come back across the street, do your tour over at Chattanooga Whiskey. And it's a great tour. You get a lot of history. They're going to tell you about how Chattanooga once had 40 distilleries pre-Prohibition, so it was really a distillery town, and then that kind of faded away, and it didn't come back until they were able to bring it back around 2011. So interesting stories there. Definitely worth especially if you're, I know all those people who go between Michigan and Florida. I was born in Michigan. My aunt lived in Florida. We used to take that big long drive down I-75, and you can use those a little break from your trip through Georgia or going into Georgia. So, all right, so this is the 91, so called because it is 91 proof, but also because it came from barrel 91 when they did their original experimentation on different batches. That was the one, barrel 91, that they really fell in love with. These are both high malt, which is very unique. They are bourbons, so they're at least 51% corn, but they have some rye, but they are higher in their malt content. And they do a lot of experimentation there with malt. It's got a nice, slight, sweet smell to it. Grainy. There's a little bit of apple, I think, in there. Just a hint, if that's the... And this is a weird note, and you really have to grab at whatever your brain can connect to. This reminds me a lot of Life cereal. And I have a really interesting relationship with Life cereal because as a kid, my mother used to buy over and over and over and over again. And after I got sick of it, I said, Mom, why do you keep buying Life cereal? And she said, because you said you liked it. I'm like, man, good deed. And here I am complaining about it. It was nice of her to do that, but I was glad she switched out of that. But I got a little bit of that. Or it actually reminds me of what a ice cream cone, those little boxy cup cones, not boxy, they're round, but you know what I'm talking about, the little cheap cones. Kind of gives you that kind of smell. Mm-hmm. Very buttery. There's like a black licorice Twizzler in there. Interesting. Yep. And you get some oak. You get kind of a little leathery characteristic in there. The grain still comes through. A little bit of heat on the end of this one. Peppery, little, maybe like a white pepper. The char is there. The fruit gets a little stronger after you've taken a sip. Oh yeah. Nice mouthfeel. That's one that I find that the second glass is better than the first. The first one you get a little bit more of the aggression of the pepper, but as you really kind of get in and sip on this, it really grows on you quickly. So definitely one that I suggest. Your first impression will be okay, and then as you drink it, you'll go, oh man, actually this is really nice. Really, really nice. All right, going to the 111. Now, the 111, higher proof, says cask on the front, doesn't say cask strength, so not sure on that, whether it is full cask strength. But, and the reason I question it is because how did they get to the 111 proofing if they're not proofing it down? But they are mixing 6 to 10 barrels each, a single fermentation, unfiltered, And they actually apologize on here in case you find some barrel sediment in there, because they do not filter. This one does not go through the Solera barrel, greater than 2 years in age, and 7 days fermentation. Excuse me. Oh man, the oak comes through a whole lot more on this. And there's actually like a little almost cherry kind of smell. Toasted oak. Okay. Mm-hmm. Wow, that one is so much more flavor forward. It's got a lot more personality to it. You'd probably expect that out of a higher proof whiskey. Again, some of that oak and some of that leathery characteristic in there. It has a little hint on the finish of what I've tasted in some of those older whiskeys. It's interesting. It's malty, but you're getting a good amount of barrel influence for a 2-year aging process. So it must stay pretty warm wherever it is that they, or at least a lot of changes to have a lot more wood interaction. The char is a little bit less aggressive. And actually, this is very drinkable at 111 proof. I would say it's maybe a little bit more aggressive than that, but not much. Nice thick legs on that. You get a lot more. It's dry. There's a little element of sweetness in there, but it is so faint. This is one of those more neutral kind of whiskeys in that it's not sweet, it's not really dry, it's very grain influenced. So a little bit of maybe cinnamon in there, like a fireball cinnamon is where the heat comes rather than being a peppery heat on this one. Very interesting whiskey. I like both. I love the transparency on these. Again, I hope a lot of distilleries start picking up on that and being a lot. It takes a lot of work. I understand it takes a lot. The other thing I love about these bottles is these soft corks. These have the coolest little soft corks. They feel so nice. I don't know why their corks feel better than other people's corks, but they have really nice corks in there. Anyway, that is it for me. Drew, I hope you enjoyed this video, and good luck with your travels this summer. Get yourself a copy of the Experience Kentucky Bourbon book. And if you get that, I also have a website, whiskey-lore.com, where I will be starting to post some of my Tennessee distillery visits and some of my Scotland distillery visits as well. So you can get a little bit of information on that. Oh, nice sweet smell there. Interesting how the sweetness on the nose actually picked up even more after nosing that one. Anyway, cheers and Slanjava.